All right, good afternoon, everyone. If you have logged into the When Home Becomes the Workplace series, you are in the right place. Today, we have a wonderful presenter with us who I'm going to allow to introduce herself, who's going to be talking to us about happiness as a wellness plan. And I think it's something that a lot of us could hear right now. So without any further ado, I'll allow Jennifer Rudolf to introduce herself, and I want to thank everyone for coming and being with us today.
All right, thanks so much. Thanks, Kelly. My name is Jennifer Rudolf. I work at the Eating Disorder Clinic at Briarcrest on campus as the Adolescent Medicine Medical Group. And I have a long history doing mental health. I'm a mental health therapist currently, and I started this topic about happiness when I was working at PPI, just to kind of spend some time thinking about happiness. And since we're all struggling right now, trying to stay emotionally healthy and emotionally neutral during a lifestyle shift that COVID has created, I feel that spending some time exploring what happiness is for you personally is important for mental health in general. And it's a great time right now to do some soul searching because we're kind of all on a pause button status with COVID being taking over our lives. If you know what your personal happiness is, you can use it to seek a sense of balance in your life. And then it becomes kind of your wellness, your lifestyle, your mission in life, it really just defines your goals and really helps you stay on target when you're thinking about your life. Looking at happiness is something also that you should do periodically throughout your life and redefine it at different life stages because it does change over time what makes you happy. You know, we all use the word happy. You know, what do you want in life? I want to be happy. Well, that's 100 different things to 100 different people. So I want to think about what happiness really means. So I'm going to share my screen. I have a PowerPoint presentation. All right, so happiness as a wellness plan. So the first thing to think about is, wait, I gotta try to figure it. Okay, so what is happiness? So how do you define, and I want everyone to participate, how do you define the word happy without using the word happy? So shout out what you say emotionally when you think of happiness.
Joy.
Joy, that's a great word. What are some more happiness emotion words? It's hard, isn't it?
Peace.
Oh, good one. You're hitting the good realms here.
In the chat box, we got a few things: contentment, fulfillment.
All right, well, I won't dwell. What's interesting about the word happy is like I said, it's like a word we throw around. What do you want out of life? I want to be happy. What does that mean? I don't know. So actually, I have been compiling a word list over time, and if I can get this to go down, I got to get out to the. Here we go. This is the ooh, that didn't work well. This is the word list that I have compiled so far about happiness. And you can see there's a ton of words that you can describe happiness for. And one thing to think about is what are the words you associate with the feeling of happiness? So for me personally, I define happiness as comfortable and confidence. So when I know what I'm doing and I'm physically comfortable, I'm happy. So take a moment to look at this list and pick out like 2 or 3 words that describe your feeling of happiness. And when you're thinking about it, think about happiness as something that you can do regularly, not something that's a big ticket item, like winning the lottery or going to Hershey Park, but something you can do every day and have a sustainable feeling. So if you can, write those down or just kind of memorize them. So what I would like to do now is show you a short video. This is Russ Harris. He wrote a book called The Happiness Trap, and he uses acceptance and commitment therapy to help people reduce stress, feel more emotionally balanced, and make some behavior changes that cause happiness to occur. So I am going to click on this and we're going to watch Russ describe the myths that we have about happiness. Oh, I guess it's, I'm going to stop the share and go to the video myself.
Popular ideas about happiness will make you miserable if you actually hold on to them too tightly, believe them too much, or let them dictate how you live your life. And there are three big happiness myths in particular that create this happiness trap. The first is the idea that happiness is the natural state for human beings. You know, if you give human beings food, water, shelter, and loving relationships, they're just going to naturally be happy. You've probably heard this myth in many, many forms. The reality is that the normal state for a human being is an ever-changing flow of emotions. Emotions are like the weather, continually changing. You wouldn't say the natural state for the weather is a warm spring, sunny afternoon. It's natural in winter that it's going to be colder. In summer, it's going to be hotter. And so it is with our emotions. You expect to feel anxious in challenging situations with an uncertain outcome. You expect to feel fear when there's danger or threat present. Now, the second big happiness myth links to the first one, the idea that happiness means feeling good. If you look at most dictionary definitions of happiness, it's described as a state of pleasure or a state of contentment. Well, if this is your notion of happiness, then there's no such thing as lasting happiness. Because how long does a good feeling last? Think of the happiest day of your life. How long did a state of pleasure or contentment last before there was some frustration, disappointment, anxiety, irritation? If I were to define the word happiness, I would describe it as living a rich, full, and meaningful life in which we feel the full range of human emotions. The things that make life rich, full, and meaningful don't just give us pleasant feelings. Like, think about building loving relationships. Think about people that you love and care about and you spend a long time with. Do you have a relationship like that in your life that only gives rise to pleasant feelings? When relationships are going well, there's often wonderful feelings of love and joy, but all relationships come with tension and conflict and difficulty. If you're a parent, if you have children, then you know that having kids brings a huge amount of meaning and purpose and fulfillment into your life. But what other feelings does it give you? Now, when I ask this question to audiences at my public workshop, there's a big laugh, and then parents start calling out anxiety, guilt, frustration, anger, rage. You know, it's like amazing how these people that we love so much can arouse such strong, painful emotions in us. So this holds true for really any meaningful life project, from building a career, from looking after your body, from building a family. The things that make life rich, full, and meaningful give you plenty of painful emotions, as well as some very pleasant ones. And the third big myth that feeds into the other two is the idea if you're not happy, you're defective. More and more, human nature is being pathologized as signs there's something wrong with you and you need some medication to fix it. The reality is that if you're not happy, you're normal. Life is difficult. You know, I ask my public workshops, is there anybody here who thinks life is too easy, that needs some more difficulty in their life? Anybody in this room that needs some more pain and suffering? You know, life is hard and challenging. Not always, but a lot of the time it is.
Okay. What'd you think? Oops. All right, so happiness is something that you can create. And I like that. Thank you for the comments. Happiness is the moment and not yourself. Oh, I like that a lot. That's a very good way to think about defining happiness as something you can create, and that it can be felt and consistently see. And there's this wave period of, there are times when you're feeling good, there's times when you're not feeling good. And that's a whole nother talk about, the fact that the natural flow of life creates many different emotional experiences, and they're all necessary and important and valid. The book is called The Happiness Trap, and it is by Russ Harris. And actually, you can get PDFs on there, just online, about worksheets that you can do and ways to define a satisfying life, a fulfilling life. And I really like him. He's also on Amazon. It's not too expensive. All right, so how do you create happiness? And I'm gonna go to my next part here. So happiness, I wanna focus a lot on what he said about myth number 2. Happiness means feeling good. And one of the persons commented that happiness has a variety of parts to it that is comes and goes. We can choose to feel good, but we also need to define what it looks like we did at the beginning of the thing, and then be able to achieve it in some form regularly. Now, I say a happiness prescription is 30 minutes a day. You need to set aside for your pursuit of happiness. And it can be anything. It can be a hobby. It can be spending time with someone you care about, including 4-legged, 2-legged, furry, feathered, other creatures in our world. Doing something perhaps might be your happiness. Having fun. Someone at the beginning had talked about joy. Leisure activities are also something that's really, really great. Trial and error, yes, that's very important, that trial and error is the way you kind of create this definition of happiness, and what we're going to talk about in a minute, which is the recipe for happiness. Again, I'm looking at the chat thing. It's The Happiness Trap is the name, TRAP. I feel strongly that the first thing we always get rid of is our time for leisure, fun, happiness, enjoyment. We always say, no, that's low priority. High priority is work, career, family, getting all the things done, the to-do list, all that stuff. You really have to prioritize. I almost wish I had a prescription pad that I could say, here's your happiness prescription. You need to do this every day. It's medically necessary for life-sustaining intervention to be happy 30 minutes a day. So, how do you do this? What is your recipe for happiness? You have to figure out what it takes and what you're going to need, how much time, where you're going to go, what's it going to be part of? Is it going to be mixed up? Is it going to be something you do consistently every day? So I'd like to kind of make an idea list here. What do we have for ideas to create happiness? Shout it out. Smile. Yeah. Actually, it's interesting you say smile, because it's a DBT fact that doing kind of a half smile position of your face like this does create a feeling of neutrality, helping someone. That really points to those of you that chose words that are about creating a connection, feeling important, feeling valued, feeling necessary, compassionate, all those happiness elements for emotions related to community and sense of belonging. Going someplace, absolutely. I feel spending time in nature is a spiritual activity because it connects you with the earth. It grounds you. It creates this feeling of who am I? Am I important? Am I connected on the earth? Am I interacting? Am I feeling things? And also, it's very sensory uh, organized. And feeding your six senses, DBT has six senses, six senses are very important for feeling happy. My cat, absolutely, pets are huge because they are non-judgmental, 100%. Well, cats are a little judgmental, but it's not personal. Giving someone a compliment is definitely, again, part of that. How do you give back to people? How do you feel connected? How do you feel important? How do you give, pay it forward, give back, helping someone? Great. Don't forget, there's also things like hobbies, things you do every day. There's a lot of different things that, when you're thinking about this recipe, what does it take? Where do you go? Who's involved? What kind of supplies do you need? All these things are really important. And I really like that a lot of the people on the chat today are thinking about little tiny things you can do. If you've committed to saying, I'm going to give people compliments all day long, your mood is generally going to be happier. If you're trying to help someone, you're going to ride that feeling, that wave of feeling good for a while. They're really simple things. We're not talking about, spending a lot of money or going somewhere huge like a vacation, although those are helpful for happiness. They're not sustainable every day, 30 minutes minimum. Just get to the next slide here. So another thing he talked about in myth number 3, he talked about you can't just expect it to happen. It's not part of our basic, food, clothing, and shelter. It's not just going to occur. You have to make it happen, especially when other emotions take over in your life. You can manage them better having your happiness wellness plan because you're refreshed every day and you can take on what life hands you. Like I said, your mood is going to be naturally a baseline of up here as opposed to really worn out and down here. I take a page from DBT, Dialectical Behavioral Therapy, and I notice my emotions when I'm not feeling well. What do I call the state that I am in right now? And labeling it is so important because once you can do that, you can do an opposite action to create your happiness. So, for example, when I'm thinking about my happiness recipe is confidence and comfort. When I'm not feeling well, the first thing I'm going to say to myself is, why am I not feeling comfortable right now? And what do I have to do to make myself feel more comfortable in this situation? And then I'm also going to think, do I know what I'm doing? If I don't know what I'm doing, how am I going to figure out what I'm doing to a degree that I'm going to feel better? So seeking the opposite is really important when you're talking about creating that happiness wellness plan. And again, sometimes it's just you need to create this feeling of comfort. So you have to have that stuff ready to calm yourself and get back into a neutral space. So what are some things that people can do to incorporate happiness? Oops, wrong slide. What are some ways you need to self-soothe when these difficult emotions come? This is especially true during quarantine. What can you do to comfort yourself, to take the edge off so that you can get back into your happiness plan? Shout it out or type it in. Think of things that are soothing to you, comforting, distracting. Oh, we got a lot now. Take a deep breath. It's funny how important breath is and how often we don't take breath correctly. And it's really important to get it deep belly breath and really take it in, hold it, and push it all the way out to get that feeling of wellness. But that's definitely a good one to take the edge off, and it's all accessible unless you're like on the moon or something. Watch something funny. That's a great one. I'm always telling people, go to YouTube and watch funny cat videos, or uh, just actually the act of laughter in itself biochemically causes happiness to kind of neurologically happen inside you. So just even the act of laughing when you're fake laughing really helps to take the edge off and comfort you. Our one person is mentioning about motivation is key. And I like the ideas that you have as well. But motivation is true. It's very important when you're feeling that pull of those negative emotions to have those things ready to go when you're not motivated. And one thing that I like to do is I like to have like a little index card handy in my place and have the equipment ready to go. So because when your emotions start escalating, your brain turns off. So do I have to tell myself what to do and make sure I have those things in the areas that I am? I actually have happiness kits in my office. I have a happiness kit in my car, and I have a happiness kit at home. So when I'm not happy, I know where to go in these 3 locations that I spend the majority of my time to comfort myself. And each kit has little slightly different things. Like I might have, like right now I have car candy and I have Spotify. Those are my big things for my car. I also have a wool blanket in there in case I don't feel comfortable. And I have a bunch of other things. Here at work, I have essential oils. I have a jar of candy here as well. Candy's big for me. And then at home, I have my art supplies. I have reading because that's huge for me. I have a lot of just interventions to comfort myself. But motivation is very important. So we have some other lists. We have yoga, walking, running. You know, exercise definitely helps produce endorphins, which create a natural feeling of pleasant mood. So really kind of getting those natural interventions are important. Anyone who's had difficult times or a traumatic experience, just a feeling of safety is what you need to feel happy. So when you're feeling unsure, you're feeling devastated, you're feeling like the world is piling in on you, making sure that you're in a safe place, either by having people that are safe for you, the environment is safe and pleasant, visually appealing, you have the ability to control who comes into that space. These are all really important ways to feel comfortable. Other parts are things that refresh, stuff like temperature control, take a hot shower, take a nice bath, add some sense to it. Your sensory system is very important for memory recall. So if you can associate a smell that's something that's pleasant or happy for you and incorporate it into your whatever you're doing, you'll notice it takes the edge off. It makes you feel happy. So have a backup plan for those tough emotions. Know when they're going to come, the situations that you're going to be in that might cause them. Have those happiness kits ready for yourself when you're in situations that you're commonly in, so you're ready to go at the moment's notice when your emotions fluctuate. And of course, if you have happiness in your life, you're going to have a life that is fulfilling. Russ Harris mentioned about having that rich, full, and meaningful life. So how do you create that meaningful life? And when we're talking about COVID care, it's really important to kind of take the time to understand what's happening to you and look at what you're doing now and how does that feed into your priorities and goals. Are you doing what you were doing before? And if you're not, how can you kind of reinvent things to get back on track and feel like your goals are still, you're progressing towards your priorities and goals. Having a sense of purpose is always a great way to create happiness. And like Russ Harris said, you know, we're just because family is important doesn't mean that family is always going to be this pretty happy picture. I know my family has really gotten on my nerves quite a bit working from home. And I'm learning to appreciate them. And I'm also learning to notice that there's a whole bunch of different things that happen when we're all kind of hunkered down together. I find that the more you stay true to yourself and your values and your beliefs, and again, make lists about those. You know, what are your values? What are your beliefs? What's your rule book? What are things that are important to you? I always like to say, I wish I had an owner's manual for myself. And then I could turn to the troubleshooting guide and figure out what it is. And sometimes I do need a reset button. So taking time during COVID is a great time to press the reset button. Has your life been in a rut lately? Has your life been really awesome and now it's kind of rocky because you know you got this strange quarantine thrown at you? How do you readjust and go forward and continue with the least disruption during this time? And then staying true and having this leads to a life worth living. And that is so important. When you have a life worth living, trying to say to yourself, what is it that is important to me? How do I want to feel emotionally? What do my relationships look like? What am I doing? And just kind of how am I organizing myself to have a satisfying life? So, any thoughts, comments, questions? I could talk about this topic for hours, really. Has anybody come across a good idea for creating happiness in a time of quarantine? Yeah, the happiness kit is, you know, I like to practice what I preach. It's a very important thing because then you just, when you're in the moment, you just grab it. You don't have to think about it. You just grab it. And sometimes I find for a happiness kit, having little index cards. I actually keep a bunch of index cards here at the office. I have them in different colors. And I have people write down stuff. So if you have, for example, deep breath, watch something funny, yoga, running, write that word on a card and then keep it handy, either in your purse, your pocket, your car, your office, and then have that list of ideas. So then when you're feeling not so great, you go to your card and you go, oh, here are my ideas for happiness. I'm going to pick one of these, either, you know, like, you know, point and shoot, or even just like go down the list and go, yeah, that's the one I'm in the mood for. Having more than one item also is very important for wellness, because you never know what kind of mood you're in, what kind of space you're in, how you can configure or create that happiness. That's true. Creating happiness kits for everybody, including your kids going to college, that would be really important for their transition. I like that idea a lot. I can't emphasize enough, spending 30 minutes a day for happiness is not something that is, you know, oh, I'm too busy, I can't do this. You have to prioritize it, and you will not feel better if you do not prioritize happiness. I have a question about, or a comment about bringing it to your team. I'm happy to email this PowerPoint to you if you want. I would say just kind of showing, you know, going through the, you know, happiness words list, having people define emotionally what happiness is, and then having them put their recipe or their kit together would be a great way to do that during like a staff development, or maybe a lunch and learn kind of environment. You might even do it during your huddles when you're trying to decompress. I know some people on campus have been doing huddles whenever they're just trying to keep everybody on track and emotionally balanced. So feel free to contact me with further comments, questions. Anything else anyone wants to chat about or comment on?
I just want to thank you again for doing this for us. These are really great suggestions and real practical ways to kind of keep up our happiness and take care of our wellness from this perspective. And I appreciate it and I thank you for it.
Thank you very much.
Also, I put in the chat box a file that has the link for an evaluation for the whole When Home Becomes a Workplace series, and information from support from our office and mental health and emotional support across for all employees in the Penn State Health System. So if you want to have that information, just download that file, which is in the chat box.